Krishna, everyone. Good to be here. Now we're going to read from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Is it the this market?
Page 22. Page 22.
22.
And for the second paragraph.
Some of the students, having come to Calcutta from small villages, viewed the big city and the presence of so many Europeans with bewilderment and timidity. But to Abai, Calcutta and the British were not alarming, and he even held a certain fondness for his Scottish teachers, although he looked up to them with a mixture of awe, distance, and some tension. He admired their moral uprightness and their gentlemanly, courteous behaviour with the boys. They seemed to him kind-hearted. The governor of Bengal, who was Scottish, once came to Scottish Churches College, visiting all the classrooms. So this is in the early days of the Prabhupada. He was a student. Prabhupada was a student, college, marriage, and Gandhi's movement. Title of this chapter. So Prabhupada had come to Calcutta to attend this Scottish Church College. So the governor of Bengal, of course, the British were there as the governors of India at that time, remember. Just like a lot of the colonial powers were spread all over the world, the French, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the British, the Dutch. In India, the British were there like 200 years. 200 years. I know I go to Indonesia a lot. The Dutch were there 300 years in Indonesia, and then we have in Africa, the colonial powers went there, South America, and so on and so forth. Of course, now they're basically their own countries, but at this time it was the British who were ruling over the Indian. So the governor of Bengal was Scottish. A strange mix. Well, he once came to Scottish Church's College, visiting all the classrooms. The room was very large. The rooms were large, holding 150 students. Wow, that's a big classroom. 150 students in the classroom. But Abai had a front row seat and got a close look at the famous governor, the Marquis of Zeppel. The school operated on the principle of strict social distance between Europeans and Indians. Apartheid. Even the Bengali faculty members, being of a supposedly inferior race, had to use a faculty lounge separate from that of the European professors. You see this position here. Even though that's not even their country. Part of the college syllabus was England's work in India by N. Ghosh, an Indian. The book elaborately explained how India had been primitive before the British rule. This is by an Indian. He wrote this, I guess, under the dictates. The book, Abai's economics professor would sometimes shout at his class when he became frustrated with their slowness. Addressing them as representatives of the whole Indian nation, he would say, "You should never expect independence. You cannot rule. You can only work like asses, that's all." Hare Krishna. Very offensive. You see, when someone identifies with the body, I'm the British, you're the Indian, I'm the French, and you are the African, and they think that they identify with their bodies and their whole culture, and one culture is more superior than the other, even they conquer it. Now, of course, the British had to, because they wanted to subordinate the people of India, they had this strategy, actually. I was reading different histories over the years. They had very worked out strategies how to psychologically subordinate them as well as physically subordinate them. And part of it was through the education facilities, the faculties. Part of it was through the schools and the colleges that were under the British rule, and their professors would be sent in from England to then have some type of indoctrination about how the British were superior, the Indian inferior, and you put it into the children when they're young, and then when they grow up, they actually start to believe this. All things Indian are inferior and all things British are superior. But when you get fed right from the young age, then you grow up and you think like that, and that's one of the psychological means of controlling the people of the country. So they had this all over, and they did it in so many different ways. And also they had their big professors come and learn the Sanskrit language just to read the different scriptures of the Hindus, and also read the scriptures of the Muslims, just to disprove them in the language of the country. So this was also, when you read the histories, this was also the method, another method. There were many methods. So this appears to be he lost his temper, but still the prevailing attitude was there, and he exhibited it in a very condescending and actually quite insulting and offensive way. to the Indian people who actually was their country. College life was demanding. No longer was Abai free to spend hours before the deities of Radha and Govinda early in the morning. That had been a boyhood luxury when he would daily pass hours in the Mulik's temple before the golden forms of Radha Govinda, watching the pujaris as they worshipped the deities with incense, flowers, lamps, musical kirtan, and opulent prasadam. As a child, he had played within the grassy compound of the temple or watched the men cooking kachuris on the roadside or bicycle or flung his kite with Mother Tarini and sister. His life had always centered on his home and Harrison Road, his mother's talks, his father's worship of Krishna. These scenes were now past. So we all know that one of Prabhupada's favorite prasadam was kachuris. Right in the beginning when he came, he taught his disciples how to cook nicely for the deities, and he always, I remember, he always has to be first class. For Krishna has to be first class. You have to cook the first class preparations for Krishna, Radha and Krishna. You have to cook everything first class. And if something wasn't up to the standard, he would say, if you didn't know how to cook properly, then you should have asked, I would have instructed. I always remember the time when someone was serving him lunch and he got the puris and he just went on the side. Click, 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 click. He said, what is this? He said, oh, that is puri problem. This is not puri. I will show you how to make the puris. So and then he went down and he said, oh, Prabhupada, it's a little difficult. And then in the lunchtime was chapatis, they were like rubber. And so he said, why are they like this? Oh, Prabhupada, we only have the electric oven. And, I'm finding it very difficult to make the puri on the chapati on the electric, to puff, I can't do it. He said, no, it's easy, I'll show you. Prabhupada went down and on the electric, he showed how to puff up the chapati. So many stories of the Prabhupada. Anyway, he was down there at Harrison Road, and he grew up there. Tollygunge Road was his birthplace. And now they bought that the birthplace of Prabhupada, the devotees there, bought that place, and they want to buy the next door. Also, they bought the next door. There's some tenants, they have to pay them some money to go out from there. And so they make a big area of Prabhupada's birthplace, and next door to make a big. Nita Bandhu's coming in here to explain a little bit about that project there. Now he spent his days within the compound of Scottish Churches College. Here there was also a lawn and a garden with birds and even a small banyan tree. And instead of worship, there was study. The atmosphere of Scottish churches was academic, and even the casual conversation among the students as they gathered before the notice boards at the main entrance were passed in groups in and out of the main gates was usually about class assignments or collegiate activities. When Abai was not actually sitting side by side with his fellow students, sharing a classroom bench before one of the long desks that stood row after row of the lecture room, when he was not looking attentively forward during the lecture of one of his professors, usually a reverend dressed in a European suit speaking a Scottish brogue and pronouncing words like duty as duty. And when he was not actually in the classroom hearing the lectures of Western logic or chemistry or psychology, and then he was at his homework assignments, sitting at a table amidst the books and the bookshelves in the college library, reading from an open book or writing notes with the electric fans overhead, while the electric fans overhead rippled the pages. Or he was at home with his father, sisters, and brothers, but reading his lessons or writing a paper with a reverend lecturer. He had had to abandon worshipping the Krishna deity he had demanded his father give him years before. He had retired his deities to a closed box. Gormahan was undisturbed that his pet son could no longer attend to all the devotional activities of his childhood. He saw that Abai was remaining pure in all his habits, that he was not adopting Western ideas or challenging his own culture, and that as a student at Scottish Churches College, he would not likely be exposed to immoral behavior Gormahan was satisfied to see Abhay getting a good education to prepare for a career after graduation. He would be a responsible Vaishnava who would soon marry and get a job. So generally, the parents always like to see their children, go and grow up, get a good education, and get married, have a nice family, and with a good education, you can earn a nice living and be comfortable, relatively comfortable in the mature, but all remain devoted. So here it is mentioned that Goma, his father, was not so disturbed. He was putting all his energy. Abhay was putting all his energy into the study. He's saying he was not engaged in any immoral activities. Scottish Churches College, it was a churches college, so it was a Christian college, so they were very moral. And also, Ramai didn't give up his own culture. Sometimes we get affected by the culture we're surrounded by, and we start to adopt that culture. But Ramai, he didn't do that. He stuck to the Vaishnava culture, and so Gormahan was very satisfied. And then Prabhupada later on would get married and go into the Greeks. One of Abhai's classmates and close companions was Rupendranath Mitra. Abhay and Rupen would study together and sit side by side in the assembly hall reading Bible class. Uttering the compulsory prayers, Rupen noticed that although Abhay was a serious student, he was never enamored of Western education or ambitious for scholastic achievements. Abhay would confide to Rupen, "I don't like these things." And sometimes he spoke of moving away. "What are you thinking?" Rupen would ask. And Abhay would reveal his mind. Rupen found that Abhay was always thinking about something religious. This is a quote from him. Something religious, something philosophical or devotional about God. You see, he's never shifted, although he was going through the study and everything like that. So Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Now, today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 16, text 26. Tatra tatra girastastha iti vishuddha vikrama Shosyat yatma sita gata Ritu parakrama Tatra tatra girastasta Iti vishuddha vikrama Shosyat yatma sita gata Ritu parakrama Tatra girastasta Vishuddha vikrama Shosyat yatma sita gata Ritu parakrama Tatra tatra girastasta Vishuddha vikrama Here and there. Ila, words. Tatra, many or various. Iti, thus. Vishruta Vikramaha. He whose chivalrous activities are widely reputed. Shosyati will hear. Atma Asrita about himself. Gata songs, narrations. Ritu, King Ritu. Ritu Parakramaha. Distinctly powerful. Translation. And in this way, when the chivalrous activities of King Prithu come to be known to the people in general, King Prithu will always hear about himself and his uniquely powerful activities. Purport: to artificially advertise oneself and thus enjoy a so-called reputation is a kind of conceit. Prithu Maharaj was famous amongst the people because of his chivalrous activities. He did not have to advertise himself artificially. One's factual reputation cannot be covered. Tatta tatta girastasta iti visuta vikramaha. Shosyat yatmasita priti pindu parakramaha. This way, when the chivalrous activities of King Prithu come to be known to the people in general, King Prithu will always hear about himself and his uniquely powerful activities. So these are the one of the statements of the Magadha Sutras. They're reciting the glories of King Prithu on his appearance. King Prithu and his wife Archie, they came from the body of the King Vena, his father. This is a very famous story in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Those of you who have read Srimad Bhagavatam probably know this story. King Vena, he was the son of King Anga, a good king, but Vena was a very controlling and very heinous type of ruler who would commit all sorts of atrocities, even killing people and so on and so forth. So he would disastrous to the kingdom, and it got so bad that, and he was so powerful that no one could challenge him or even say anything. This is the way of so many. We read that they become deluded by their own position, identifying themselves in some sort of way. We can see it around the world. Some leaders are like that also. They get into powerful positions and they want more and more power, and they like to get more power, especially for themselves. Make sure that their position is very strong, even to the detriment of so many others who were perhaps formerly their colleagues and their contributors to their rise of power. We read in the modern history, the Stalin, and some of even the current leaders, I won't give their name, how they maneuvered in such a way. They use people to come up, to rise up to the power. And once they get the power, they maneuver things as to solidify their power solely in themselves, practically, solely in themselves. And they either do it now. King Vena, he did it by his physical strength. Just so powerful king. Anyone opposed him, he would just get rid of them, have them killed, executed. These things were going on. We know in Hitler's time and Stalin's time, those who opposed, they would just be executed or sent off to the concentration camp or something like that. If they were even sensed in the slightest way opposing even a potential opposition or danger, they would do these things. And so we have unscrupulous type characters who do that, and they can do it in a physical way. They can do it by getting in and changing constitutions, these sort of things. That one leader, when he came in, there was a few recent leaders who came in, that they have to have the change of the leader, and then when they became the leader, they manipulated, changed the constitution that they could stay in forever. So it is a situation. So King Vena was like that. So it became so disastrous that it was no one could do anything. But the Brahmanas, who were very powerful at that time, Brahmanas were still very powerful by their tapasya, and by their tejas, by their mantra. They thought that this situation is just intolerable, and although Vena was approached in many ways, he still did not change his position, and so they decided to remove him by mantra, and by chanting certain mantras, he was killed. There was no other way around it. Generally, this is the last resort for anyone, especially Brahmanas who don't involve themselves in political matters. They are very busy in giving the spiritual education and doing all the religious activities. But they don't involve themselves. But if a catastrophic situation arises, sometimes the Brahmanas act. In that case, in the case of King Vena, they did. And so, when he was removed or killed in that way by the Brahmanas, and then there was lawlessness for want of a king. So they decided to, by mantra and special potency, out of his body, they produced King Prithu and Achi. So they were now when King Prithu appeared, he was observed by many denizens from the higher planets, also descended to see the glorious form of the king and his queen, King Prithu and Queen Archi. And Lord Brahma, who was the original person within the universe, as far as this universe is concerned, he even came, and he could see by the different physiognomy and the markings on the lotus hands of King Prithu and Queen Archi, and the soles of his feet, certain marking. So he's an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada comments in quite a few places that sometimes people like to get power within themselves solely and elevate themselves to a position where they, become like a god. Asuras create all sorts of gods, or they make themselves a god, a godlike person, but they have to be venerated, worshipped more or less. And so they proclaim themselves supreme in the universe, just like Ravana and Hiranyakashipu, they just proclaimed themselves as supreme within the universe. Hiranyakashipu stopped all the worship of the devas of Lord Vishnu, and if anyone, he gave the decree that if anyone worshipped the devas, Lord Vishnu, then they would be punished severely, or just stop the worship, or if they have to worship, they worship him. They worship Hiranyakashipu. If you want to take the picture of the deva or the murti of the deva or Vishnu, put my murti there. You want to do worship, you worship me. I am the emperor, I am the supreme in the universe, no one can challenge me. So why worship anyone else? I am the giver of all your necessities, I will give. You want to worship someone? Worship me. You don't want to worship me, you worship no one. So Hiranyakashipu, Ravana the same. So you had big asuras. Now you have more little ones, but still they try to come in the same position of a godlike. They create, their own gods, or they declare themselves God, or they declare other things as like a god. Just like today, so many, the people worship other people as like a supreme type of person, or things in general. Just like people are very attached to money. And, to them, money is a God. Making money itself is like God. We worship, we'll do anything to get that money. So it's like a God in one sense. Worship money is God. So, when you're in ignorance, under the mode of Tamaguna especially, then you can think all sorts of delusional things when you're in ignorance. And you don't know what is the actual, you don't know your own position. Jiva, the spirit soul, you don't know the position of the supreme, who is actually the supreme personality. And you just go by your own feelings and emotions and what you, grown up as and thinking in certain ways, and you just come to your own conclusions. But whether those conclusions are right or wrong, who can say? But especially if someone's in the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion, those conclusions, one can have a very strong conviction about those conclusions and be very determined to hold on and to go forward based on those conclusions, which may or may not be correct. Prabhupada used to comment quite often. He said the modern civilization is thinking about so many things, maybe, perhaps, so he says, it's a maybe, perhaps civilization. Maybe it's like that, perhaps it's like that. They don't know exactly, so they speculate or they put forward certain theories. Some things are correct, and some things may not be so correct. Some things are partially correct. But, when it comes to spiritual life and understanding things as they are, we take the information ultimately from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and through his empowered representative and through the different shastras and so on and so forth. These are very authoritative. It comes from the Supreme Lord. After all, everything came from the Supreme Lord. So who better to understand how things go on and what the situation is in the world? Who better to understand? But when you don't have information of who that individual is or who that personality is, then you conclude in a false way about so many things. So going back to how Lord Brahma came and so many other great personalities came, so they could see that this was indeed an incarnation, an empowered incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just through his look and demeanor, and also his the different imprints in his hands and his feet, just like we read about Krishna when he was walking in Vrindavan, the gopis would be looking for him, and they could see by the impressions on the ground or on the sand, on the river bank. They could see, oh, this is Krishna's footprint, because he has certain markings on the soles of his feet. This was not drawn on or anything; it's imprinted in his lotus feet. So some imprints are there in the right foot, some in the left foot, and also on the hands. So someone who wants to claim, I am the God, why are you looking for God elsewhere? I am the God. Or Or why are you looking God elsewhere? We are all the God. They say. So many things you hear, isn't it? So why are you looking? God is within you, you are the God. So they say something, but the Prabhupada has always said, well, if he is the God, where all the gods, the Krishna's incarnation, somebody are listed in the Shastras, a certain description of where they will appear, who even have and what family they will appear as they be incarnated, what are the signs of the imprints. Please show me all these things. then we can discuss whether you are the God or something like that. So, and they're great personalities. So it's not only you yourself can understand, but when great personalities who are very exalted, they say, just like that is very incredible. Lord Brahma, he came and he saw Brahma Maharaj, and he said his incarnation. The Lord Brahma said that. So when Lord Brahma says that, you've got to take it very seriously. If some little boy or child, he's incarnate, yeah. Would you take? Maybe, they're little children, what do they know so much? But just like, if you're sick, someone says to you, I think your problem is this. So maybe not. But if you go to someone who's expert in the area about medicine, they diagnose you, they look at you, and then they give their opinion, what is the problem. You're going to take that more seriously because they're more credentialed. They've done the study, they've passed the exams, and now they're accredited to a medicine, or law, or architecture. So if you want to, build a big building, you've got to go to the architect or the engineer. You're not going to just pick someone from the street. Can you put this big building? What do you think? How can we do it? And he said like this, are you going to take so seriously that? No. You have to see who is the accredited person. And then when they present, and if many together say, of the accredited person, many together they say, this is the way we have to do it, then you're going to take it very seriously. So Lord Brahma, he descended, and all the other devas were there, and so many great personalities, all of them agreed, he is incarnation. He is incarnation of the Supreme Personality. So therefore, has to be taken. And they said like that, and the description is given why he is this. And further on, they said, he is Shaktivish avatar. There's different types of the avatar. Lila avatar, Guna avatar, Manvantara avatar, so on and so forth. And the Shaktivish avatar. Shakti means power, empowerment. Shaktivisha means a partial, means generally Shaktivish avatar means that they are Jeev Tattva. Understand what I'm saying? Jeev Tattva means the living entity, like not Vishnu Tattva. There's Vishnu Tattva. Vishnu Tattva means of the category of Godhead. In the world, there's all different categories of individuals and energies and so on and so on. And this is all explained very nicely in the chapter. So on the position of spiritual personalities, there is a category of God and his expansions. They are called the Vishnu Tattva. They are not like ordinary living entities. There's a similarity in that we are spiritual. The Supreme Godhead is also spiritual. Vishnu or Krishna is spiritual. So the similarities are there, but there's a difference in the degree of greatness in that spirituality, the degree of power. Even between the expansions and the avatars, there's a little bit difference also. Some are empowered to act in a certain way. Some are Vishnu Tattva, some are Jiva Tattva. Just like Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is a Jiva. Unless there's no Lord Brahma or Vishnu, Lord Brahma. But generally, Lord Brahma is Jiva, but he is empowered. You could say, although he is like a Guna avatar, but you could also say, in one sense, he is like a Shaktivisha. He is given great power to do what he needs to do. So he's like a god. He's like Bhagavan. He's actually many times referred to as Bhagavan. Just like Indra, Agni, Vayu, they are very powerful. They are not Vishnu Tattva. They are not the Godhead. They are Jiva, like you and I. But they've given Shakti, given power to do, to look over the universal, affairs and so on and so forth. So, the rain, all of the heat and the wind, all these things. It takes a lot of power. So Krishna, he empowers them. And so Prithu was Jiva, and so Achi, but it said they were partial, he was partial representation of Vishnu as Jiva type, but Shaktivesh. And she was partial representation of Lakshmi Devi. So Vishnu and Lakshmi Devi, they were represented in Prithu and Archi. So they have come now, and generally when there's catastrophe in the world, the Lord is very mindful. He wants to right the situation. So he does in his own way. Sometimes he comes directly, sometimes he works through the others. In this particular instance with Vena, he worked through the Brahmanas to remove him. And then he came as Prithu. So a very, very wondrous personality. And then everyone was praising him. And we have these suttas and Magadhas and so on. They're praising him. All these verses previously through this chapter were the praises of Prithu Maharaj. And here it is mentioned in this way, Prithu Maharaj was very chivalrous. Chivalrous. Now, from the front, if there was some danger, he would give the protection. If someone was attacking the kingdom, he would be the first one. Generally the leaders these days, they're from the back. They're in a room somewhere looking at it on the video screen, what's going on. Even I read these, these terrorist attacks, everything, and these young boys, they're sent in with the bombs, everything. Young boys and girls also, they're sent in. They're just young, but the ones who are telling them to do it, they're not. I often say, if you want to do it like that, why don't you go put the bombs on you, and then you go in there and you do it. No, they send the young boys and girls in there. So this is a very deceitful and very horrendous situation. So we have like in the terrorists, but also the leaders today, if there's some danger, they should be on the front lines. They should be on the front lines, leading the way. So we see that Prithu Maharaj, he was very chivalrous. Chivalrous also means, especially chivalrous, can be to mean protection to the ladies. Protection to the ladies, the vulnerable people, the ladies, the children, the elderly, all these things. But chivalrous, especially in regard to he would, if there was some offense or some danger to the lady, he would be the first one to correct the situation. You cannot do that to the lady, he would be there. So therefore, this word is used here, chivalrous, is when the chivalrous activities of King Prithu. And this is now the suttas and the they're saying these things, and it hasn't come to pass. Keep in mind that Prithu and Achi have just appeared. So they're predicting these things about Prithu Maharaj. They're predicting, in previous verses, all sorts of things. The King Prithu will meet Sanat Kumar. He hasn't met Sanat Kumar, but these suttas, they had so much understanding. They had some sort of sensory perception or some telepathic kind of ability to understand what would happen in the future. So he would meet Sanat Kumar and the whole four Kumaras in the garden of his palace compound. So sometimes the Lord empowers individuals to know about something in the future. Just like we were in the Gita Jayanti, we were saying that Yasadev, he went to, before the battle of Kurukshetra, he went to see Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was his son. He went to see Dhritarashtra and he told him, he said, you remember before I said that when you asked me how your sons, I said, yes, now is for your sons and the kingdom is the golden period, but in the future there'll be very dark days indeed. So he came back and he said that. He said, remember what I said? There'll be dark days. He said, now the dark days have come. And actually this battle of the Kurukshetra, all your sons will be killed. Now you can't go because you're blind, and so you're here in Hastinapur. And so you're here. And so, but if you like, I can give you the vision. I can give you the vision what's going on. And not only that, I'll let you be able to hear the conversations. You can see what in your mind's eye, what is going on, and you'll be able to hear the conversations of how people are talking. So something like that is very, very mysterious, how someone can be like that. Krishna knows these things. He's a Paramatma. He's an art, so he knows what you're talking about, what you're thinking. And he knows what is the food, Krishna knows. So this means that Paramatma, Supreme Lord, empowers certain individuals to know also these things as much as necessary. So, of course, he said that to Dhritarashtra, but Dhritarashtra said, oh, my sons are going to die. I don't want to see it. He said, I don't want to see that. And then he said, if someone is going to see it, he can come and give it to my secretary. You give that power to Sanjay, and Sanjay, he will see it and he will hear all the conversation. But I don't personally, especially, I don't want to see it. So that's how Sanjay, he came, and when you read Bhagavad Gita, he is saying all these things. How did he know what the conversation? He's empowered by Vyasadeva to know the conversation. So here, the Sutras and Magadas, they knew these things about Pritama before he even did it. And they're praising him. He is the protector of this, he is extraordinary king, he is equal to the Prajapati demigods. Well, there's so many things they say. He has he has a reputation of the Supreme Personality of God. He will be very heroic, powerful, he will travel all over, looking up. So many things. He hasn't done these things yet, but they're saying. Now, Prithu Maharaj, from his side, very interestingly, he doesn't like to hear it. And in the last chapter, this was mentioned. Because when someone is actually a very advanced personality, especially on the spiritual level, but even on the material level, especially someone in the mode of goodness, they don't like to hear someone praising them. With someone in the mode of ignorance and also the mode of passion, they like to get the praises. In fact, they get upset when you don't praise them. You didn't say anything nice about me today. What? Normally you're saying something nice, today you didn't say anything. They get very upset. Especially if they get upset if you say something bad. You said something bad, oh, they don't know. Mode of ignorance, mode of passion. They like to hear them, and actually they don't like to hear others' praises. Especially if you're saying in front of them. If you're standing next to them and then someone's praising someone else besides them, just like I was saying, Hiranyakashipu and Ravan, you couldn't glorify anyone else. Just like Prahlad, he came and started glorifying Vishnu in front of Hiranyakashipu. He just became so angry. What do you think you're doing? How dare you? Someone more powerful than me, or saying I can't control my senses. Who do you think you are? He's saying to his young son. The people often say like that. Who do you think you are? It's like saying that about me. When we say that, it's quite dangerous because who do you think you are? So that kind of portrays, a little bit puffed up position. So, so generally, they don't like to hear others' praises, and they like to hear others being condemned. They take pleasure. It's a kind of perverse situation. This is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam as some of the symptoms of someone who's affected by the mode of ignorance and passion. So some of the symptoms are there. And someone who is a little bit advanced can see by the symptoms, just like a doctor can see by the symptoms of the patient, that they can get a certain idea of what the problem is just by then they'll do further investigation and so on. But so someone who's advanced in spiritual life, they can see by the symptoms, just by their presence and by their sort of consciousness, their activities, and it'll be exhibited. For someone in the mode of ignorance and passion, they will have certain symptoms. Just like if someone in the mode of ignorance likes to sleep a lot, doesn't, sleeps a long time, doesn't like to, always trying to get out of work, doesn't like to be told to do things. So these are some of the symptoms there. You can read it. Bhagavad Gita, especially in the 12th chapter, 17th chapter. Also, you can read some of these symptoms. So they like to, those who like to hear their praises, and especially if those praises are more than what their actual qualification is. This is a type of and conceited people, they like that. They like to hear themselves praised, and if someone's praising them more than what their actual qualities and capabilities are, they won't object. They won't object to that. You know, you did so much. You ran the marathon. You did it in so many minutes. You know, you did it in 30 minutes that run. You did it in 30. Maybe he did it in 60 minutes. But yeah, okay. I did it in 30 minutes. You're correct. They'll accept that. But so there's a difference between these types of people and there's someone in the mode of goodness, especially a very spiritual personality, like Prithu Maharaj. Now, he didn't like hearing self-praise. And it's very contradictory to them because naturally they're humble and they don't like to hear that. Actually, Lord Chaitanya himself, he didn't like to hear anyone praising him. And so especially when they called him, you are the Supreme Lord. He would go, Vishnu, Vishnu, Vishnu. No, I am not. He would hold his ear. I am not. No, don't say these things. So he wouldn't like to hear. But we see the difference there, that those who proclaim themselves the Supreme Being, God, they proclaim, they want everyone to know, and those who don't agree, they will be exterminated. That's it. So there's a vast difference in the mentality. And so Prithu Maharaj, he doesn't like to hear, and he especially didn't like to hear, he doesn't like in general, he doesn't like to hear it, but he especially, what he actually said, he said, you're praising me for things that I'm supposed to be doing in the future. That's very difficult to hear that. I haven't even done these things yet you're praising me for them. He said, I don't like to hear my praises, for one thing, and especially when I haven't even done those things. If I'm going to receive praises, and as the king, part of my duty is to receive praises, and one tries to keep humble about it. The people come and offer so many things to the king. So we have to be charitable, I suppose, and accept those offerings. And he gives offerings in return. So on and so forth. But he said that, but Prithu Maharaj said that, all right, if you're going to at least wait until then, wait until I've done them, then you can say something. So he was protesting. Prithu Maharaj was protesting all these statements of the suttas and Magadha. He said, at least, all right, I don't like to hear it. I prefer that you don't even praise me at all. But if you're going to praise me for these things that you're saying that are going to happen in the future, then at least wait until I actually do these things. And then maybe there's a little bit more acceptable. So a prophet actually comments, this is a little bit of a message here. If someone doesn't actually do these things, you shouldn't take credit. To take credit for something that you're not really qualified for or have not done is the highest type of, here prophet uses the word conceit. It's a very conceited type of mentality. When conceited, you're putting yourself, you like to hear your own praises and for things that you're very much like everyone, as I said. But this is a very conceited, delusional kind of position. And you get very puffed up, you're very arrogant, you get conceited, and you start. And when you're like that, you start offending people because you're proud. So when you're proud or arrogant, conceited, then anyone you perceive as challenging your authority, or whether it's in your education, whether it's in there's four basic categories people get puffed up over. The one is the high birth, very aristocratic family, high Brahmin family. These types of high birth, people can get very puffed up. I'm a Rockefeller. I'm a big king. I'm a big prince. And so you get very proud over these things, or you get very proud over your education, high education. Others are more inferior to you because of your education, by your birth. This one's a lower birth and this one's not. Or you can get very puffed up by your money. By your money. You got a lot of money, you're a superior person, and the other one has got no money. And so because of your money. And then of course by your beauty, if you're a very beautiful woman, a very handsome man, you get puffed up. You're very puffed up. And if you've got even one of these things, but if you've got a few of them all together, sometimes all four, it's very easy to get puffed up, especially if you're in the material world, conditioned soul, jivatma, very easy to get puffed. So when you get puffed up, someone's going to come along, they're going to have beauty, they're going to have it. So then you see that as a challenge, then you'll be offensive, you'll insult them. It's almost like a mathematical equation. Yeah, you will do that. Be forced by the modes of nature, by your attitude to do that. And then you'll have to get so many reactions for your insult, may lead to very immoral activities, also very sinful, and then you're going to have so many reactions. It is mentioned here that someone who's actually on the position of the Supreme Personality, that's one thing. Then we can understand why the praises are good. But someone who is just ordinary living entity who gets so many praises, then this is a very delusional position. And we see around the world people are getting praised for so many things. And as far as we're concerned, as far as devotees, spiritualists, ultimately meaningless because it's so temporary, so superficial. You're so beautiful, but in 10, 15 years' time, no more beauty. Beauty is gone. I always remember the model, one of our devotees became a very famous model, and she said that modeling is so. He said, well, the models are always in anxiety. I said, why are they always in anxiety? I thought they would be, very happy. They're models, very beautiful, and top of the world, and getting a lot of money, and getting photographed all the time. But they said, no, we're always anxiety about losing our looks. That's it. Because it's also your profession. There's always a younger girl coming along, and they're going younger and younger. It used to be like 20, 25, and now it's 18, 16, because they're more beautiful at that age. They're always in anxiety when by the time you're 30, that's it, you're out. She said they're always in anxiety. I said, that's very interesting. So people praise these, she's so beautiful, he's so handsome, he's so strong. But after some time, it's gone. So what's the use of it? It was there before, but now it's gone. So from the spiritual point of view, it's a kind of, we don't give much importance to that type of praise. It comes and goes. But praise to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's eternal. And that helps us remember Krishna. And so that's very beneficial. That revives our own spirituality and our understanding of the position of Krishna and Radha and everything. And we see everything in proper perspective in the material world, spiritual. And so that's very, very beneficial. So it's not that Krishna, Radha and Krishna needs our praises. They don't need our praises. And Prabhupada actually mentions here that someone who actually is very highly exalted personality, their glories cannot be covered. They can. They're so charismatic. Just like someone asked. I was talking to Maharaj about this, and why? Someone asked a question in the class when we were both there. I thought he gave a very good answer. And they said, why is everyone? It was one of the new people, and so why does you talk about Krishna and how everyone follows Krishna and Krishna? Why does Krishna have to be in the center of everything? Why does Krishna have to be in the center? And Maharaj gave a very nice explanation. And he said that just like in this world, in any group, there's always one person who's very charismatic. They're very, very charismatic and very naturally, everyone's attracted to them. They want to hang out with them. They want to be with them. Very naturally, they just lead. Because they're so charismatic a personality, it's just natural to follow that person. So Krishna is the supreme charismatic personality. It's not that he's trying to control, he's just like that. That's his nature. He's very charismatic, and everyone by nature wants to follow him, just naturally. It's not forced. And so that's why he's always in the center, because he is the most charismatic personality. I always remember one time one of our senior disciples of Prabhupada, he was just looking on a morning walk and he saw some birds in the sky flying above. He said, Prabhupada, see, these birds are, they're flying and there's one in the front and they're all following here's the leader, they're all following him. Why are the groups following the leader like that? Prabhupada said, because they're not less intelligent like you. They know this one's the leader, he's got experience, he knows the way to go, so let's follow him. We can go our own way, maybe not get there. But this one's the leader, he's been before, so let him be the leader and we'll follow him. And another place, Prabhupada actually said the leader can only be the leader when the followers agree to follow him. Then he can be the leader. So if the followers agree to follow him, then the Prabhupada said he's not less intelligent because he was making a joke. And so Krishna is just a natural leader. He's always in the center. He's just natural like that, such an amazing personality. So such a personality, he cannot be, his glories cannot be covered, even if he were to try. That's like Lord Chaitanya, Vishnu, but it can't be. It was just coming out that he was such an exalted personality. So to praise such an exalted personality, that is very wonderful. Prithu Maharaj. Now, Prithu Maharaj, Prabhupada actually comments that he was right in being so humble and almost protesting against so much glorifying. But from the other side, he said it was right for the Sutras and Magadha to praise him because actually he was Shaktivesh Avatar. He was the incarnation. So from one side, they were right, but on the other side, Prithu Maharaj was right for his attitude and they were right in their attitude. So it was a very interesting understanding. But thank you very much, Hare Krishna. I'm going a little bit over time. I don't know if we got time for any questions. Maybe we've gone over time. We've got time for questions. Maybe one or two questions. Then anyone would like to make a comment and ask a question? Good Lord, unprepared. Yes.
So as I understand it, he was empowered to the community. But he also mentioned that he was a representative of Vishnu. So was he representative in a way that he had Vishnu's qualities? Is that how he was represented?
Well, yeah, of course he had some of Vishnu's qualities, but it's mentioned, especially representing him in the kingly order. This is actually mentioned in the chapters that he was empowered, an empowered king. So he was empowered with all the qualities and capabilities necessary of performing that service. And empowered to such a point, we'll read on further, that everyone was so satisfied with how he ruled. I mean, being in a position of leadership is not easy, especially in the modern day. If you're in a position, just like I read about your prime minister, she resigned, she was burned out or something like that. So everyone who's been in a big position knows that it's not easy. You get criticized this way, there's so many shortfalls. But it's not easy. So one needs some sort of empowerment. And the best empowerment is from the Supreme Personality. So he was empowered especially to do that service of the executive head. And of course he had all the other qualities as well, being a pure devotee of the Lord. And we read later on how he and his wife go back to Godhead. When they retire to the forest at the end of his rule, they go back. So they were very exalted, pure devotees also. But they were especially very empowered in the kingly way. And Achi as a queen, very empowered, and they were very much loved and so capable. We'll read how they so capably administered to ruling the kingdom, especially after the catastrophe of the father, King Vana, before they had to turn all that around and make it all nice again. Answer your question? It's one last one.
I'm just thinking about that point of glorifying, devotees glorifying each other. And
So say something again.
devotees glorifying each other.
Yeah.
Offering praise to devotees. And we know that's the right thing to do. It's a very natural thing to do. Offer praise to devotees. But oftentimes the receiving devotee may seem a bit embarrassed.
What was that last one?
The devotee you're offering praise to can sometimes become embarrassed.
Oh,
yeah. So how do we offer praise in the correct way so that
well, I think they have to be sensitive to that the individual is feeling embarrassed. You don't want to lay it on too thick. and actually, it's mentioned in the, I think in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, when praising someone, they shouldn't overpraise them. That in itself is considered a little bit of an insult, or a little bit of a defense. To overpraise someone, it could be doing so in a sarcastic way. Therefore, it is instructed to not overpraise them. And we can see in the life of the Preeti Maharaj, especially, he was saying, like, you know, you're saying these things I'm going to do in the future, at least wait until the end. So if you overpraise someone, it's mentioned by Sanatana Goswami and Hari Bhakti Vilas, that is considered, can be considered a little bit offensive if you overpraise. So, you know, we like to glorify other devotees because they'll feel very embarrassed and because they're naturally very humble. So they'll feel embarrassed. So therefore be a bit sensitive. That's what I got. Because, you know, in front of the Guru, one praises the Guru. The Guru is very humble, doesn't need our praises. But it's the duty of the Guru to accept, especially on the Vyasa Puja day, to accept the worship of the disciple. There's a nice article actually by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where he says that I'm sitting on they have me sit on this big seat and I'm receiving all these praises, and but I consider myself just some sort of big animal sitting up here. But nevertheless, because I am a Guru, it's my duty to accept it so they can be benefited, because I am accepting it on behalf of the Supreme Personality of God. So actually, when one receives praises, no matter if they're in the position of Guru or whatever, devotee, one there on behalf of the Supreme Personality of God. That's the way you can always remain. I accept these praises on behalf of the Supreme Personality. Thank you very much. Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai.